Hi there, everyone. I'm Emily Teacher, and today we'll be reading A Child of the Revolution. Frida Kahlo was born in Coyoacán, just outside of Mexico City in 1907. Her parents probably thought her life would develop much as the lives of other girls at that time. The Mexican dictator, Porfirio Diaz, had been governing for almost 30 years. Under his rule, women were restricted from taking any part in public life. Furthermore, Frida's parents gave her and her three sisters a strict Catholic upbringing. The girls were expected to be obedient daughters and to become good Catholic wives and mothers. So, in this story, we're going to learn about Frida Kahlo. She's a very famous person. We'll find out why. But she was raised in a very restricted life, right? The person who was governing at that time and her parents were very strict people. So she was expected to stay quiet, to obey, and to just do the same thing that everyone else was doing. But let's find out what she really did. But in 1910, when Frida was 3 years old, everything changed in Mexico. The people overthrew Diaz and established a much more open government. The new government speedily set about making many changes that were long overdue. Education and healthcare became more widely available. More significantly for Frida Kahlo's future, the new government set out to stimulate interest in the arts by supporting the work of Mexican artists. So, this new government started to do a lot of good things for Mexico. Her three sisters were largely unaffected by these changes, but Frida, who was the rebellious one, took part in them. She seemed to enjoy shocking people. One of the ways she did this was to go about wearing men's clothes. She was a firm supporter of the 1910 revolution. As an adult, she claimed to have been born that year so that she could call herself a child of the revolution. Her Mexican mother and German father must have despaired of her at times. They couldn't have known that their lively daughter would grow up to become one of Latin America's most notable painters. So, a long time ago, especially for women, they didn't like to be different, or their parents and others in their lives didn't like them to be different. But Frida was just that. She was very different, she was very rebellious. She liked to shock people. She liked to do things that were not ordinary for the time. She even wore men's clothes, which would have been very shocking for people then. So her mother and father, it says, must have despaired of her at times. They must have been disappointed that she was so different, but they couldn't have known that she was going to end up being such a famous painter. Frida Kahlo had a difficult childhood. At the age of 6, she contracted polio. This is a really bad disease. That left her with a weakened right leg. Then, in her late teens, she suffered terrible injuries when she was thrown from a bus onto a metal spike. The spike penetrated her side, almost killing her. While she convalesced, she began to paint. This was a way of taking her mind off of the severe pain from which she was seldom free for the rest of her life. Many of her paintings are self-portraits. In them, she often included the parrots, monkeys, and other pets whose company gave her so much pleasure. Despite their bold, bright colors, however, the paintings clearly express the pain that lies behind them. Kahlo's art was her way of inviting the viewer to share her suffering. So she suffered of a lot of pain. She had polio and this horrible accident, but she liked to paint to help herself take her mind off of that pain. She used bright and bold colors and added beautiful things in her paintings. So it was kind of a way of inviting those who looked at the paintings to invite into her life and to share in the pain that she was overcoming. She first met her future husband, the painter Diego Rivera, in 1922 when she was 15. They married 7 years later. He was twice her age and already a world-famous artist. The marriage was a tempestuous one, with many separations, a divorce, and later a remarriage. They both had strong personalities and each found the other exasperating to live with. Nevertheless, their love was strong and deep. Rivera appears frequently in her paintings. So she met her husband. They had a very difficult marriage and life together, but they loved each other. Toward the end of her life, they lived together in the house where she was born, Casa Azul, the Blue House. After Kahlo's death in 1954, Rivera gave it to the people of Mexico. Now known as the Frida Kahlo Museum, it is dedicated to her life and work. The fame of both artists has grown over the years. In 2015, the Detroit Institute of Arts brought together over 70 of their paintings and murals. The artwork on display showed clearly how much they had influenced each other's work. So this is all about Frida Kahlo and her husband, right? So in their paintings, in their work, you could see how close they were and how they inspired and influenced each other because their artwork shared some things. Thank you for reading today. We do have links related to each article. If you want the link for this story here, you can find it down in the description below.